Hey guys, Mike B. Rolling here. I had another story that happened back in, we were talking about driving on, black ice and winter and sub-zero temperatures. And I had a time, I've sat and thought, racked my brain. It's either the winter of 2014 or the winter of 2015. I'm not sure which one, but we had a cold snap that came in. It was like 6 or 7 days of single digits or zero, or one or two below zero. It was colder than a well digger's ass. I mean, my God, it was cold. And I'll never forget it. I pulled a tank back then, and I got a call to go get a load, and I was like, okay, no worries, and I went out there when it was time to head out. Went out there to fire my truck up, and I realized that either, I can't remember if the extension cord got unplugged or if I tripped a breaker. But either way, it doesn't matter. There was no power going to that block heater, and that truck was froze. I mean, froze solid. I did everything I could to get that truck running. It was a 2007 Peterbilt 386. Nice truck. Really, I like that first generation ISX. That was a good engine. But that thing was froze up. I tried ethering it. I tried putting the salamander on it and heating it from the bottom, and everything I could do. I actually wound up the one problem I had with that truck, and this is where I screwed up. The electronic pump for the fuel, the primer pump on those first gens. When you change the fuel filter, you turn the key on, let it sit, and you'd hear that pump kick on, and it would prime up your fuel system. Sometimes you had to turn the key off and cycle it twice to get a real good prime, and then she'd fire up, and you'd have one little stutter, and then boom, take off and run great. Well, my primer pump had gone out on me, and I knew it, and I kept telling myself I need to get that thing in the shop and get that primer pump fixed. But, I just kept putting it off, and typical procrastinator, I forgot about it. Well, I remembered that day. I was like, oh man, am I in a world of shit here? Everything's gelled up. I'm sure the fuel in the filters is gelled up. So I got the block heater running, and I pulled the fuel filter apart, and pulled it out of there, and it was just it was gel. It was frozen. And that's even with dope in the tanks. At 1 degree, 2 degrees below zero, dope, it helps, but it's not perfect, And I thought, okay, well, here's what we'll do. I got some good, diesel in the garage in a can that's, 60-something degrees. So I'll fill this filter up 3/4 of the way with diesel, and then put a shot of 911 in that so that it'll get up into the fuel lines and thaw out whatever might be gelled there. So I did all that, and I put it back together and thought, okay, here we go. Now we got to try to cold crank this thing because I can't prime it. I thought, well, we're going to have to do it old school, man, and pull out the ether, because just there's no way around this. If I miss this load, it's like, a third of my paycheck, of my settlement. So I did not want to miss that load. So I was desperate to get that truck started. And I grabbed the ether, and I hit that breather and started her up, and it would, and then it would come back down. Long story short, burnt the starter right out. I didn't let it cool off in between, and it didn't have an override shutdown. It just cranked the starter till it burnt down, and that, sure as the world, I burnt that starter up. And I thought, man, am I well and truly screwed now? What am I going to do? So I actually called dispatch and said, hey, man, I've burnt my starter up trying to get this truck started. Somewhere I lost power, no block heater. I cannot get this thing started. I guess you'll have to just cover my load, and if anything changes, I'll let you know. And I got pulled up here. And he's like, all right, man, well, sorry to hear that, but yeah, I can get your load covered, no worries. And, I'm not a quitter. I wasn't giving up. I was going to get that truck started come hell or high water, because I knew I had about an hour to an hour and a half before I was past the point of no return that I could get that load back, I went up there and told my wife, I was get in the car, get in the Expedition. We gotta figure something out here. I got to get this truck started. And she's like, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, well, just, you ain't gonna like it, but trust me, I got a job for you. And my driveway, when I park the truck, there's a slight hill. My driveway kind of goes up and then back down because it splits, and one half goes up a hill like this, because my house is way up on the hill. So one half of the driveway goes up. Well, right there's a little upwards and then downwards, and then you go out back. I got a big cul-de-sac to turn around, plenty of room, but that little whoop-de-doo in the driveway, my truck parks right on the bottom side of that. So I'm actually pointed uphill ever so slightly, and you got to go uphill and then come down to get back out of my drive. when there's snow and ice on the ground, I'll actually park further back in the driveway just so I can kind of get a run at that little hill. But there wasn't any snow in the forecast. It was just supposed to get cold, so I didn't think nothing about it. I parked in my normal spot. So we brought her down there. Well, she backed the Expedition around because, you know, it pulls better in reverse. Most four-wheel drives do. All of them do, as far as you ask me. They pull better in reverse. You get more traction. Plus, you can steer and kind of, you know, work it like this and pull from different angles. Does that Expedition? It's a boss, man. It can get the job done. So I hooked a chain up, and she was tugging on me. And the problem is she could tug because I was, you know, under my flatbed. So I dropped the air out of the bags, and I ran the air hose down and aired up my tank so I could release my brakes. And I told her, you got to pull me out from under this trailer and up and over that hump, and then we'll stop and rehook. I'll spin you around, then we'll head down the road with her. And she'd pull me, and it'd come loose out of the fifth wheel, and then it'd slide back down, and clunk, it'd lock my fifth wheel in again. So, you know, it's like, all right, I got to figure out how to not lock this fifth wheel, because she's got to, you know, let me hit it and then pull me back off of it and slingshot up the hill, you know, which, you know, case in point, buy a kinetic rope. They are worth their weight in gold. Yankum is one of the good ones. Yankum rope. Those things are worth their weight in gold. Doing it straight with a log chain, you can't use kinetic energy. You got to bounce off of something. If you're going to invest in winter gear, invest in a good Yankum rope. But anyway, I've got one now and love it. Swear by it. That thing has saved my bacon. But so I had to figure out how to keep that fifth wheel from hitching to the trailer. So I pulled the fifth wheel and I took a pipe wrench out of my toolbox and I jawed it down on the handle of the fifth wheel, you know, pulled it out, put the jaw on there, and then put the handle up against the fifth wheel so that it couldn't go in and latch the fifth wheel. And I thought, well, let's try this. And she tugged me and got me 2 or 3 inches up, and then we slid back and boom, hit the fifth wheel pin. And I said, when I slide back down, you're going to give her hell and bounce off of that trailer. And I was on the phone with her the whole time, staring right at her because I had a 20-foot chain, so she's right there looking at me, you know. And I said, okay, let it slide, and then bang, go! And she hit the gas, and that Expedition pulled me out from under that trailer, up and over the hill. And I was like, woo, man, we got her from here. Now that I'm up and over that little hill, we got her by the titties now, buddy. So she pulled me down towards the road. I said, okay, you know, stop there. And I spun her around, hook up to the back. She pulled me out onto the road, and I just put it over, and see, it had a 10-speed in it, so I was in 8th gear, high range 8th gear, because you don't want to be too low in the gear. You'll just, you know, you'll drag your tires. You want it to be a high enough gear that those tires will turn that engine over, but not 1,500 RPM. You know, you only want to turn it over about 900 to 1,000 RPM until it pick up the fuel. You know, everything's cold. So dropped her in 8th gear, and she started pulling me down the road, and I'd let out on the clutch, and I'd hold my foot on the throttle, about half throttle, so if it started to pick up, I would feel it lurch, you know. And we went, and I said, okay, you know, you don't ever touch the brakes. I do all the brakes. You know, all you're going to do is you're going to hit the gas or let off the gas and steer. Nothing more. Don't ever touch your brake pedal. And she did. She did a really good job. Not once did that chain ever come loose. But I told her, okay, I'm on the brakes, let off the gas, and I slowed her down. We stopped. I turned the key off, reset the system, let it click, go through its cycle. I just kept it in 8th gear. But long story short, she pulled me 2.5, 3 miles up the road, time after time, that thing just would not pick up. We went up to a 4-way stop. She pulled me into the stop and then turned around, unhooked the back, pulled me through the stop, turned around, unhooked the front, pulled me around the corner, head back towards the house. I told her, if this sumbitch ain't running by the time we get home, fuck it, I ain't going to work. And county sheriff actually come up and he's like, what y'all doing? And I'm like, froze up truck, man, trying to get her to fire. And he's like, yeah, man, it's cold out here today. He said, I'll run I'll run my lights for you to, you know, we're out in the country, there ain't nobody coming, but he stayed behind us with his lights on. She's pulling me down the road, and the very next time she started pulling me, 8th gear, let out on the clutch, boop, 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 nothing, and all of a sudden, pop, 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 you know, and I'm like, ooh, come on, baby, come on, you can do it, you know, and then pop, 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 and I told her, I said, let off the gas, I'm running, and I kicked it into neutral, and just let that engine sit there, and I mean, sounded like 10 monkeys inside that motor with ball-peen hammers, plop, 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 it was running like shit, but it was running. Immediately picked up the phone. Hey, I'm running. Can I have my load back? Yeah, you can have your load back. And I was like, all right. I can't shut her off all week because I had 3 loads to do, and I didn't want to give up that first run. And I told him, I said, I just can't shut it off all week. I'll run these loads and then I'll put it in the shop this weekend, get a new starter put on it, and a lifter pump, or a primer pump. And he's like, all right. Man, I did too. I ran that truck all week, never shut it off. And it was so cold you wouldn't want to shut it off anyway, but it ran just fine. But every time I let it on the clutch, I'm like, nice and easy, you know, don't kill it. Whatever you do, don't kill it, because if I kill it, I'm stuck. And yeah, but my wife towed me all the way up the road and all the way back the road. And that was, I mean, ether, nothing. And just when it gets cold like that, if you don't have a truck plugged in, man, it can be a real son of a bitch trying to get them things started. Everything's harder in the winter. But yeah, anyway, I just want to tell that quick story. I was thinking about that, and I've had a lot of guys, a lot of people on there respond that, you know, they kind of like the stories, you know, they learn from them. But learn from my mistake. Number one, get a kinetic rope. Number two, make sure your truck's plugged in, and, you know, when you know it's going to get cold, double check it every now and then. Make sure you still got power running to it. Don't make my mistake. But yeah, anyway, just a quick story. You guys know what to do. Like and share, subscribe, and keep them questions coming, man. That's I'm here to help. Talk to you all later.